School's out and summer's on. Actually, not quite. More like students went home for March break and stayed home. Then, March break just rolled into summer break with no break in between. And who knows, maybe summer break will blend right into winter break too. So, for many students, March break came and went, and they returned to school at home in front of their computer. But the question is, were they studying on their computer or were they gaming on the computer? I heard some parents complain that their kids are game all day and game all night. So when do they study? During the day? During the night? When are they doing their homework? It's kind of like you get up in the morning, you stay in your PJs, you log onto your teacher's live feed at 9 a.m. And then you shrink your teacher's screen into a small corner of the monitor, and of course keep the audio on loudly, while you're playing a video game with the music turned off. So when your parents walk past your closed room door, all they hear is your teacher's voice playing over your game. The difference between June and July is now your teacher no longer comes on to your screen at 9 a.m. So you can legitimately game all day and game all night with the game music on. But it hardly feels like summer without the usual festivals, parades, concerts, and all the summer activities that come along with it, and the summer sports. In Canada, our summer begins with our national birthday on July the 1st, followed 3 days later by the fellow Americans, who celebrate their national holiday on July the 4th. And in much of the Northern Hemisphere, students leave school for summer break sometime in July, and parents often take time off too to travel with their families. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, well, it's winter, so you'll have to do some imagination what summer is like here. But how would summer be without travel? And even if you stay at home, there may be no summer camps or no street food festivals. Imagine going to a street food festival during the pandemic where you have to wait in a mile-long lineup under the beating sun with a mask on, sweating. And you buy individually wrapped and pre-packaged street food using prepaid vouchers, and then you have to take the food home to enjoy. No place to wash your hands, no place to go potty, and no safe way to unwrap your freshly prepared street food until you get to the safety of your home. And when you find out what an ordeal it is to eat street food, you realize you really don't want to go home empty-handed because you've already prepaid for non-refundable vouchers and you've already stood in line for an hour. But the experience just isn't quite what you think it should be. But I think the real suffering industry is travel. I would not be surprised if travel agents and airlines and hotels go out of business and close permanently before the end of this pandemic. Sadly, so many businesses we've grown to know and love may go bankrupt and never live to see the post-pandemic world. But I digress. Let's go back to summer travel. Many airlines are, in fact, still in business. They have not gone up in smoke yet. In fact, airplanes are still going up into the sky and landing at their planned destinations, thankfully. In fact, Air Canada and WestJet have both announced that starting in July, they'll be offering all their seats up for sale. That means you'll be sitting potentially shoulder to shoulder and elbow to elbow with complete strangers, with no physical distancing, no seats left empty in between if they're able to sell the seats. And you won't know if the man or woman beside you is carrying the coronavirus, and they also won't know if you're sick either. Now, airports will take your temperature prior to boarding, but we already know that you could carry and spread COVID-19 before you show any symptoms. So having a normal body temperature does not guarantee that you are well and healthy. And of course, everyone will wear a mask to board the aircraft. But how do you eat and drink on the flight? Or should you eat or drink on the flight? Are they going to serve food to passengers in seats A, C, and E first, and then wait for these passengers in seats A, C, and E to eat, and then collect up all the dishes before serving passengers in seats B, D, and F? That way, your neighbor will have a mask on for the full duration while you're eating, and then you have your mask on while they're eating. Or maybe airlines or the food manufacturers for the airlines will change up their method of food consumption or food delivery. As if airplane food wasn't already bad enough before, we're now going to have our airplane food in a mushy consistency in a sealed container. So you use a bubble tea straw and you stick it underneath your mask into your mouth, and you suck up your airplane meal through the straw while keeping your mask on. Same thing with your drinks. Drinks are served in closed containers and you drink through a straw. Actually, what a brilliant idea! You know, in the event of something called turbulence, nobody will spill their food or drinks anymore. Less mess, less cleanup. This might as well be an astronaut diet. And probably the airlines are going to love this idea and they're going to keep it going even after the pandemic's over. The new airplane food. The new normal. As for the environmental impact of plastic straws and containers, well, you can just make them biodegradable. Or how about use a cinnamon stick for a straw? Or better yet, an edible straw. An edible straw such as a chocolate straw. So that means you're going to drink up or suck up your food, and after that, you eat the straw as a dessert after you finish your meal. That's assuming your chocolate straw didn't come in contact with the germs on the outside of your mask or the germs floating around the aircraft. You see, an airplane is the perfect incubator for respiratory disease like COVID-19. I mean, you've got a couple hundred people sitting no more than a few inches or a couple of centimeters apart in an enclosed space sharing the same air for hours. And also, an airplane is also the perfect vector for spreading the disease. Think about this. During your flight, one sick person can spread the disease and make several people sick. And within the matter of a couple of hours, you arrive to your destination, and some of these unknowingly infected passengers are going to disembark and enter into the community and quietly spread the disease around. You won't know you're sick until maybe 1 or 2 weeks after you've been infected. Whereas, at the same time, some of the passengers will leave the previous flight and get a connecting flight, infecting more people on that flight because it's another incubator, and then will arrive at another destination, serving as another vector to transmit the disease further. You can see how within the matter of a few days, one person can make the whole world sick. Thus, many countries have now imposed border restrictions or maybe outright travel bans. That means after you've already risked your life and well-being by being on an incubator for a handful of hours, you walk up to the customs officer and hold out your passport. And the customs officer asks you, what's the purpose of your visit? You respond, travel. Immediately, the customs officer denies you entry. Now you got a problem on your hands. You now have to find another flight to get you to another country that will take you. And even when they grant you entry, you're required to quarantine for 14 days. Don't forget, you also need to isolate for another 14 days when you get home. That's 28 days or 4 weeks of sitting inside doing nothing. So you're going to spend 28 days in strict isolation just so that you could enjoy the pleasantness of another country for a couple of days. Doesn't sound like too much fun. Doesn't sound like a fun summer when 28 days are spent indoors. You might as well stay at home in front of your TV or game all day and game all night, because that's probably what you end up doing. Unless you rather sit in a hotel room or a government-specified isolation chamber for 14 days. where you will game all day and game all night. I don't even know if they'll give you a TV to watch. Otherwise, you better hope your hotel room or your isolation chamber has a window with a nice view. Or else, you might be staring into a dumpster in the back alley. Now, it may be worth taking that risk if staying at home means living in a condo apartment where your windows are facing a back alley with a dumpster. You might want a change of scenery, like going on a holiday, and hopefully staying in a hotel with a better view, except if you're unlucky, your hotel room is also facing a back alley with a dumpster. But then there's also a glimmer of hope with staring at a dumpster. You might be the first person to bust some illegal activity. What if you see somebody drop off a plastic bag, supposedly containing cash, and then you see a second person pull out the money bag and drop off a different bag into the dumpster. Moments later, the first person returns to retrieve the second bag from the dumpster. Oh my goodness. What could possibly be inside? Could it be drugs? Weapons? Dead body parts? Or just some sort of contraband? Should you call the cops? Ah, the moral dilemma. What if gangsters caught you watching? What if gangsters caught you catching them? Or secretly filming their illegal activity? And don't forget, you've still got another 13 more days to quarantine that room, and they know your whereabouts. This is the moment that you realize you made a big mistake to travel to that country, that city, and that part of town. Anyways, time's up for now. I've got more to talk about, so to be continued next time.